Lauren Bringle is an accredited financial counselor and the customer experience and operational content manager at Self Financial, which is a credit building platform with products that make building credit accessible for people with low or no credit. She's passionate about empowering women to not just survive, but to thrive in life, career, and money. Lauren has been featured in all of the publications, including Real Simple, The Newsette, The Washington Post, Her Money, Time Next Advisor, Mint, iHeartRadio, Lifehacker, and more. What a mouthful. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm so excited to be here and be part of this.
I'm so excited to have you here talking about credit, debt, and divorce because this is such an important topic for women who are going through divorce. Many of them come out of the divorce with debt, particularly credit card debt, that can be crushing. They're probably in the middle of their divorce and they might not really even see a way out of this. How do they rebuild their credit? And so I really wanted to talk to you about this. And I know that you actually have a personal divorce story as well.
Yeah, I that's part of why I'm excited to be here today too, right? Because I not only understand kind of the perspective from financial counseling and from the kind of financial technology, personal finance space, but also just that lived personal experience. I like to say that life is the greatest teacher, and I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So I'm glad to kind of be able to take some of those moments and kind of offer them as insights to other people. It really kind of brings it full circle. But yeah, just a little bit of background about me, before coming into personal finance, I knew kind of how to budget, how to save, but there was just so much I didn't know about managing money. I went through a big situation with medical debt where I was almost facing bankruptcy, had just so much medical debt. And then to kind of go through this experience with divorce where, it may not have been kind of what some people view as a traditional divorce situation. I was actually the primary breadwinner. I had to pay out in the divorce. At the time, there was basically no content speaking to that either. So it was very much all the content for that kind of situation seemed to be from a male perspective, speaking to men as primary breadwinners. So as much as it sucked going through that and shelling out that money and everything, I love to kind of be able to flip that narrative now because more women than ever are the breadwinners, right? And so I think it's really important to have these different perspectives so that women, regardless of who you are in a divorce, can have someone that's speaking to their experience too.
I love that. When people hear experts like you and me talking about managing debt, improving credit, I think it's kind of common for them to think, well, that's easy for you to say, you're not in my shoes. So hearing about your financial struggles in your divorce, I think makes it more relatable and just easier for people to kind of embrace your story. When it comes to credit, was that an issue in your divorce? Did you guys have debt that created a problem, or was that something that you had pretty much under control at that time?
Yeah. So basically the only kind of debt that we had shared was our mortgage. So I think, to kind of understand the context, it can be helpful to kind of back up and even explain how credit works in kind of a divorce and a marriage.
Sure.
So one thing to keep in mind is that for the most part, credit is really unique to you. So it only your credit score is separate from your partner's credit score, regardless of whether you get married, whether you get divorced. And and your credit depends on whose name the account is in for the most part, right? So if you have something like a mortgage that you both co-sign for, then that's a shared debt in the eyes of creditors and financial institutions. It will impact both of your credit scores, all those things, right? But if, your partner has a credit card that's in their name only and you're not an authorized user, that credit card doesn't impact your credit score. So one other thing to keep in mind, though, too, is that that's how it works in terms of credit reports and financial institutions. But sometimes in the laws of your state, there may be some gray area, or these things might change depending on the divorce agreement, depending on kind of property laws in your state. So that's why it's very important to get legal advice, because some states, for example, Texas, where I'm based, is a community property state. So any assets you earn or take on during the marriage could be fair game to be divided in a divorce, but some states are not like that. So having the right kind of legal guidance who can walk you through how it could work in your state is super important as well.
One of the difficulties that I often see in divorce is there is a credit card. It has both of your names on it. He has used it for whatever personal things that didn't benefit the family and ran up a $30,000 balance. And the judge says he's got to pay that credit card. We're assigning that to him because he was naughty and that's his. But your name is still on that credit card. And while your name is still on it, the credit card company can come after you for payment, correct?
Yeah, so I think this is where it's important. If you are not the primary card holder, if you are an authorized user on the card, you can have yourself removed from his credit card, generally speaking, or he can remove you from the credit card to where you would no longer be considered responsible for that debt. If you are the primary card holder, it's different. One other thing to keep in mind is authorized user isn't always the person who's responsible for the debt, but it will impact your credit.
Right.
If he's running it up. And it works a little differently if you co-sign a loan together. That's different than you would absolutely be responsible for the debt if he doesn't pay in the eyes of lenders.
It can get really complicated and really frustrating because I know that in some divorces, people will use finances to torture you. And so they will purposely not pay that credit card, knowing that it's going to impact your credit, knowing that maybe you're looking for a house because you need a new residence and you might not be able to qualify and things like that. So I always tell people that when you're going through this process of negotiating the divorce, that you have to be really careful about what your divorce agreement says, and to the extent that you can, get your name off of as many debts as you possibly can.
Yes. And this brings up another point too, right? Is something to keep in mind is your lawyer can help you with the laws around divorce, but they're not necessarily a financial expert, right? They're not going to be able to advise you on how best to manage your finances through that process. So it may not be a bad idea to also get some financial support, a financial advisor, a financial counselor, or someone just for you who can help look at your specific situation as well and help you kind of tailor what you need. Because yeah, your lawyer is going to do their best to legally divide assets or, protect what they can, but you may need someone with that financial perspective to help you get the best outcomes and plan for recovery as well.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Now, I know that you also have some advice regarding some steps that people should take before they tell their partner they want a divorce. What should they be doing with regards to their debts at that time?
Yeah. So I would say that, there's some things if you're thinking about divorce or if you see it coming and you haven't had those conversations yet, I kind of call this the time where you should take these silent steps if you can. Where don't talk to your partner about these steps that you're taking. This is your chance to kind of quietly start to build a foundation to leave, to build an exit strategy, to kind of get yourself in a good place as much as possible before the topic of divorce even comes up. So the first thing is, know where your money and your debt is. Every account. And I think, Tracy, you've got some good guides on finding this information
Yes.
as well that people can use as a reference. But yeah, if you can, what are the passwords? What accounts are shared between you two? What could you possibly be responsible for? If you may have to have some delicate conversations with your partner. It can get a little tricky if they're unwilling to disclose. That may be something eventually you would need legal support to kind of uncover everything. But if at all possible, first find out where your money is. The second thing I say is understand the laws in your state, kind of what I mentioned before. What is considered community property versus yours exclusively versus your partner's? And then I say build savings. Get your emergency. If you don't already have an emergency savings fund that is just in your name, do that. There are so many high yield online savings accounts that you could open pretty much in a matter of minutes, potentially. So just start to kind of squirrel away whatever little bit you can, even if it's just $10, $20 here and there, because the more emergency fund you have, the less you may need to borrow. Or the faster you could be able to leave a situation, especially if it's not a healthy, safe situation as well. And then the next big thing I would say is protect your credit and start building. Women unfortunately tend to be kind of the biggest victims of identity theft, especially during divorce, which, I've seen this before where someone's partner will open a credit card in their name, rack up a ton of debt, and then in the divorce, they're left with the bill, right? So the first thing I say, and the first thing I did personally to protect my credit when, going through a divorce was putting what's called a credit freeze on my credit reports at all three of the bureaus, so Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, because what that does is it prevents anyone, including yourself, from opening a credit account in your name unless you undo that freeze temporarily or permanently. So that is one thing to keep in mind. If you are trying to open a credit card or a credit account, you have to lift that freeze or they're going to not let you. So something to be considerate of, but it also prevents your spouse from being able to do anything with your credit as well, or it makes it a lot harder. The next thing I say with credit is check your credit reports. So know where you stand in terms of your credit, and then kind of start to learn about it like we're doing now. Learn how it works, learn how you can build it, and then build your credit. Because the reason I talk so much about credit in a divorce too is it just gives you more options. It's sort of like an emergency fund, right? Like it's another option. It's another tool you can lean on if you need to borrow money or you need to get out of there or you need to rent an apartment or whatever it is. It's just so important for so many things to set you up for life after divorce too.
I'm a huge proponent of protecting yourself when you're thinking about divorce, entering into the divorce process. And two of the really, really early steps that I recommend that women take is running a credit report on themselves so you can get the lay of the land and figure out exactly what debts have your name on them. And unfortunately, it is pretty common for women to run a credit report on themselves and find out that there are debts in their name that they didn't know about, be that a credit card, be that I had a client recently whose husband had taken out an auto loan in her name and she had no idea. He had done this online, had gone and pretended to be her, signed electronically. The lender was not aware whatsoever. So running that credit report can be really important. And the other thing is to start making a list of accounts that you know about, bank accounts, investment accounts, retirement, any loans that you know about, any credit cards that you know about. Even if you don't know account numbers or you don't know exactly whose name is on an account, if you know that there might be an account at the bank down the road, put that bank on your list. We'll figure out the rest later. But that preliminary stuff of kind of getting the lay of the land with the money, so important.
Definitely, definitely. Because the more informed you are about these sorts of things, the less likely you are to be taken advantage of or miss out on possible assets during a division during the divorce process, right?
Right. I always say you cannot get a fair settlement in your divorce unless you know all of the information about your money. Everything's got to be on the table for you to be able to consider before you agree to anything.
Exactly.
So let's move into credit building strategies because that's so important in this divorce process. Many of the women that I work with don't have a lot of credit. When the divorce comes along, credit cards that their names are on have been shut down sometimes, and they're losing points on their credit scores for a variety of reasons. They maybe haven't been employed for a while. So what can they do to start building some credit?
Yeah. So, first of all, it helps to understand kind of what goes into credit, right? And what goes into your credit score. And there are kind of these five major factors. There's tons of smaller factors that come into play too, but these are kind of the major ones to focus on. The first is payment history. Make your payments on time every time as much as possible. You've got kind of this length of your credit accounts. Do you have a long history of positive accounts, or are you kind of opening and closing regularly? Do you have you taken out a lot of new credit recently? Do you have a good mix of different types of credit that you use responsibly? And then how much do you owe on each of these accounts? Do you carry high balances, or do you pay things down? So those are kind of the primary things that a lot of lenders, a lot of credit scorers will look at.
Right. So it's important to know what those factors are that go into your credit score. One of the other things that I think is important that people don't understand is there's a whole bunch of different credit scores that can be calculated. And so if you go on one of these sites that gives you your free credit score, you might see one number, and then maybe your bank offers you a free credit score as well, and you're going to see a different number, and they could be very, very different. And most people don't understand why that is.
Yeah. So there's different models, there's different versions, and they come from different credit bureaus. There are three major credit bureaus, and each lender may have their own preference for where they pull a credit score from. That is definitely something to keep in mind. I think that checking your credit score on a free site or through your bank can be, a really great kind of gut check on how you're
Yes.
doing. I sort of compare it to like taking your blood pressure or your pulse. It gives you an idea of health, but it's not the full picture. So keep that in mind. I think your credit reports will be much more telling of how you're doing in the eyes of lenders, I think, as well.
Great advice. So, how are we going to build this credit? And I hope that you're going to tell us about some of Self's products that can help us build credit.
Oh, absolutely. We will definitely get there because Self provides tons of great tools that people kind of at any phase in their credit building journey could use. One of the big ones is we have free rent reporting right now at all three credit bureaus, so you can sign up for that. We have some great kind of, I like to say, Kickstarter tools, if you will, where you can kind of work towards building your savings and building credit at the same time, minus a little bit of interest and fees that get charged as part of that process, but it can really help you build a savings habit through the credit builder loan. We've also got a secured card that you can access through that kind of credit builder account as well. So tons and tons of great opportunities to build your credit and kind of work your way up, I like to say, over time too. But when it comes to kind of just starting to build your credit, what I would say is, again, check your credit report. Annualcreditreport.com is the place to go to get them for free from all three bureaus. If you don't have a credit score or a credit report, all that means is you're going to start building your credit from scratch because those organizations don't have enough information yet to calculate a score or generate a report for you. So that can be very telling too, is if you don't have kind of a credit history, that's again where Self could really help you start building that credit history. And aside from that, like if you do have a credit report, check your report for clues. Kind of put your investigative hat on and look at, are my balances high? Have I made my payments on time? Have I opened a bunch of new accounts recently? Does this information look right? For example, if your partner opened a credit card in your name and racked up a bunch of debt that you knew nothing about, you may need to file a dispute or file an identity theft claim with the Federal Trade Commission. You can do that online. You file a police report or something. You may be able to get some support or take actions to have that debt removed from your name. You don't always just have to say, okay, this happened and I accept it and I take that debt on, right? So you may be able to kind of save yourself from that a little bit.
Okay, so as we wrap up, I am a huge fan of what Self is doing to try to help people build credit, maybe from really difficult situations. And so I want you to tell me a little bit about the company because I want people to understand Self is not a credit counselor, they're not a debt management company. They're actually really different from most of the companies out there who are offering credit and debt services to consumers.
Yeah. So Self Financial is a great company. I've worked here personally for over 5 years. So definitely a lot of good work that we're doing. And I like to say, you have the credit counselors, financial counselors that can help you kind of understand how things work or how things might work for your specific situation. And Self is the company that provides tools that you can use to actually work on your credit. So we're kind of the action step you could take, if you will, to start doing something about your credit. And so that's like the really cool thing is, we're a financial technology platform. You can download the app from Google Play or the Apple Store. And you can, again, sign up. I think our sign up process is relatively easy. So you can get started pretty quickly depending on your situation.
Well, we are going to link to Self's website in the show notes. It's self.inc. And when people go there, they're going to be able to take you up on that free rent reporting to the 3 credit bureaus, because I think in the process of divorce, we end up having a lot of women who end up being renters. And so having that positive rental history go on your credit report is a great benefit to them. I'd love to have everyone check out Self, see the tools they have to offer. Lauren, thank you so much. We learned so much in such a short amount of time today.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate it.